Uh-oh. Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
When I started boxing as a professional and when I turned over, I never ever imagined myself fighting Katie Taylor. I just didn't see it in the trajectory and the stars. And
We didn't see it.
I
in your
still
roadmap
don't see
either.
it.
We thought she'd be gone.
Exactly. And
Well, hats off
you
to
know,
that
all the
woman.
fights that she's had and stuff, I just never saw it. So I don't really think of Katie Taylor as a possible opponent. For me, I'm so blessed and so lucky that I'm in a great division. You know, there's so many world champions at my weight or in and around my weight that I am excited to fight. Katie Taylor is not one of them. For me, you know, Alicia Baumgardner is someone who I want to get my hands on. There's, you know, Beatrice Ferreira is another girl. People have been mentioning her name, and you know, there seem to be disrespect to mine when it comes to her. And you know, Terry Harper, she just won the belt, so that's another domestic all-female British clash that's gonna happen. You know, when I clean up that 135, I'll move up. I'll move up 140. Who's there? There's Chantel Cameron. There's I'm sure Michaela Mayer's talking about she can come back down. There's so many girls for me to fight besides Katie Taylor, so I never really had her in my mind and as a potential opponent.
But she's just in the way of what
But
you
she's
want.
in the way of stopping
what
me
you
from
want.
what I want, and it's insane because she hasn't defended it. She said she isn't gonna come back down. So what are you holding on the belt for? You know, she had a chance to come through and just collect the belts like one after the other. And you know, she's done that. She's undisputed, move up and weight undisputed again, and now she sees it fit to prevent me and my path from doing the same thing. I'm not calling her out. I don't think I.
That's not the way it is. That's not the way it happened. You can't blame Katie if you haven't fought for a full title yet when you had the chance months ago. You could have fought Beatrice Ferreira months ago for the newly vacated IBF. Katie also vacated the WBO. She's not holding up this division. Even if she's still in possession of 2 of the 4 alphabet titles now, you had the chance to fight for one of them. Is Katie Taylor going to vacate the 2 alphabet titles she still holds at 135 while she's undisputed at 140? Well, I really don't know, because why hasn't she vacated yet? There are no big money fights at 140 pounds right now. She just had one with Amanda Serrano, and there might be a trilogy. They might run it back one more time, at which point, if it's at 140, then yeah, Katie will drop the WBC and WBA titles. If there's a trilogy, I think. But if there isn't, there's an off chance that she might return to lightweight. Maybe to have a unification match with, say, Terry Harper, who's the newly crowned WBO champion at this weight. Maybe that happens. It's a fluid situation with a lot of moving parts. Though I reiterate, Carolyn Dubois can hardly blame Katie Taylor for having not fought for a title yet, a full title, when she had the chance months ago.
The next fight is definitely going to be announced hopefully next week. It's going to be a early early in the year show. Hopefully it'll be for the WBC.
Yeah, because you
hopefully I'll be upgraded by then, or at least have a chance to fight for him. Then I would definitely be chasing a clash, unification with Terry Harper. You know, I feel like she's holding on the belt. It's mine, and I want to go out there and grab it. You know, I feel like she's checked out mentally. I think she's there for the money right now, and I'll be there to help her through the door, man.
That being said, she beat Rhiannon.
No, I don't respect that.
Did that
wasn't.
surprise you, or did you think that was?
I had Terry. I knew Terry was like Terry has way. If you look at Terry and Rhiannon Dixon, Terry's been fighting longer. She has all the attributes. She's bigger. She's stronger physically. She's got a better jab. She's got better There was no way that Rhiannon should have won that fight unless Terry completely bottled it and just let Rhiannon, with the confidence, just come and take it from her. Luckily, that's not what happened. She finally, pulled it together in the fight. There was a few sketchy moments, but she managed to pull it together. It was a very close, messy fight, and I wasn't impressed from either of them, to be honest. Neither of them fought like they were fighting for a world title, in my opinion. Neither of them went out there and really just gave it all they had. They both were so afraid of each other, and it was slightly disappointing. But Terry won the belt, and now it's my turn to go and collect it.
Carolyn doesn't have a high opinion of Rhiannon Dixon's boxing. Rhiannon Dixon, the former champion, but it's a Rhiannon that she was targeting months ago, instead of Beatrice Ferreira, an Olympian like herself. Well, if you don't think that much of Rhiannon and her boxing, why was it more important to fight her than Beatrice? Surely Beatrice would have given you a better fight than Rhiannon. So Rhiannon loses the belt to Terry, but she doesn't have a high opinion of Terry either. She says that Terry has checked out mentally, and she's only in it for the money. Because you're not. Then what are you in it for if you're making fighting her more of a priority than fighting Beatrice? Beatrice Ferreira will be fighting one more time before this year is out in Monte Carlo on the undercard of MJ Akhmadaliyev's next fight. It will be Beatrice Ferreira's second fight of this year and her first defense as IBF champion. The way it's all being presented is disingenuous. That's what I'm getting at. But at some point these fights have to happen. At some point they do, though perhaps not in the order that Carolyn expects. That for trucking off Terry Harper to fight Carolyn, she could stay right there, stay on Matchroom, and unify titles with Beatrice Ferreira because they are both champions. Target Jessica Kamara also. Jessica's not WBA champion, not yet, but she's in line that if and when the WBA title becomes vacant, Jessica might be elevated. She can fight her. That the somebodies at this weight need to fight each other, I agree. Though perhaps not in the order that Carolyn would like. I'm not proposing that they freeze her out. I'm just saying that that's one way it could happen. Unless you're gonna offer Terry Harper a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, to come over to your side and box you, then why should she? She might as well stay on her own side and fight Beatrice Ferreira for 2 alphabet titles instead of just in defense of 1. Think about it. Men's heavyweight news. You may have heard that former Bridgerweight champion Lawrence Okolie has so decided to vacate the Bridgerweight title to move up to heavyweight, making both his heavyweight and Queensberry Promotions debut. This will be his first fight under the banner opposite the ring Germany's own Hussein Mohammed. A strategic ascent. He's moving up to heavyweight at a very opportune time. Before he made that decision, he was under orders to take on South Africa's own Kevin Lerena, his mandatory challenger. Kevin being more trouble than he's worth. We know that Kevin is a handful. We know that he can give a guy a lot of problems. He gave Daniel Dubois a lot of problems. And Lawrence didn't want those problems. It's more trouble than it's worth to hang on to a Bridgerweight title in a division that nobody watches and has no big money fights. So this does make Lawrence a 2-division champion because he was WBO champion at Cruiserweight, then WBC champion at Bridgerweight. He now aspires to become a champion at heavyweight, sporting a professional record of 20 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 15 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 21 professional bouts to Hussein Mohammed. Similar number of fights, 18-1 with 14 KOs, having been KO'd once in 19 professional bouts. Knocked him out. Guy who goes by the name Zan Kosobutsky in November of 2022, 2 years ago. Hussein sat out all of last year but returned to action in May of this one to rebound off the loss. So he has seen action in the last 12 months, but this is a guy who's never even fought in a 12-rounder. 19 professional bouts. He's never fought in a 12-rounder. Never fought for a full 36 minutes. And his quality of competition, well, you see it. Close to the same number of fights as Lawrence Okolie, but not the same quality of competition. Not the same level. So I suppose that gives Lawrence Okolie an edge in what is set to be his Queensberry debut. How will Lawrence Okolie make out as a heavyweight? He was always very big, statuesque for cruiser, and even at Bridger. He's a big guy. Plenty of room to fill out that 6'5" frame as a heavyweight. Does he pack a heavyweight punch? Does he have heavyweight power? In the heavyweight division, you're always 1 punch away from being knocked out. And that applies to Lawrence just as much as it applies to everybody else. So when last we saw Lawrence, earlier this year in May, opposite the ring Lucas Rozansky in the Bridgerweight division in Poland, that was honestly the best I've ever seen Lawrence Okolie. The fight only lasted 1 round. He stopped Lukas Rosansky in one, dropped him something like 2 or 3 times, and it was good. However, Lukas Rosansky doesn't speak to what he will be facing in the heavyweight division. No, Lukas Rosansky is a portly fellow, much shorter and stumpier and stockier than what Lawrence is going to find in the heavyweight division. So even though Lawrence did look good in his last fight,
There were tougher challenges at heavyweight.
bigger men. 6'5" with an 82-inch wingspan. Snap on the punches and power. There's a chance that Lawrence will do all right, and he's in the right place as the Queensbury Promotions stable. What they've got going on at heavyweight, they have quite a bit. They have Fabio Wortley. They have David Adelaide.
Moses Atelma.
Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce. I even heard they signed a Ukrainian heavyweight. I have yet to familiarize myself with that fighter, but I will. The point is that Queensbury is a good place to be if you're a British heavyweight.
And in a very general sense, the British boxing scene is the best for a British heavyweight.
Ample opportunities there for Lawrence, so that if he makes it past this Hussein guy next month, I would like to see him in there with David Adelaide after that. I'd like to see him in there with David, and if he beats David, maybe you put him in there with Fabio Wortley. That could be a big fight.
Maybe you put him in there with Joe Joyce. He hasn't retired yet. That'd be a good litmus test for Lawrence.
Good acid test. David Adelaide, Joe Joyce en route to a Fabio Wortley showdown.
I could go for that.
Yeah, Lawrence may be a former cruiserweight champion and a former bridgerweight champion, but at heavyweight, he's got to make his bones.
What are his chances?
This is going to sound strange, but because Lawrence was such a tall cruiserweight and such a long cruiserweight, I think it made it awkward for him to land punches on smaller guys, smaller targets.
He never had much in terms of inside game.
The caveat of having those long arms is mid-range to inside, it's harder to get your punches off. When you have that kind of reach, you need room to throw. And mid-range to inside, Lawrence never showed much ability to fight there. Now as a heavyweight, the opponents are going to be bigger, considerably bigger targets that are also slower on their feet, slower hands.
He's boxed on Matchroom. He's boxed on Boxer. Now he's boxing at Queensbury.
Can he make out all right? Can he win a title?
Ugh.
We're going to get our first look at Lawrence Okolie, the heavyweight, early next month on the 7th.
Some answers to those questions.
Elsewhere in the heavyweight division, all signs point to a Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker showdown, February 22nd, likely the main event of that big show they're planning. Very ambitious matchmaking on that show.
Is this the most ambitious fight for Daniel?
Not really. I'd say that a more dangerous fight would be a Martin Okolie fight, or even a Zhilei Zhang fight. Zhilei Zhang, who's rumored to be boxing on that same show.
How could Zhang be more dangerous than Joseph when Zhang was beaten by Joseph?
Well, Joe only beat Zhang by the skin of his teeth, and that wasn't before he was floored 2 times by the hard-punching Chinaman.
Boxing math.
For the first 4 or 5 rounds, Zhilei Zhang is a very dangerous opponent for a guy like Daniel who wants to go for it, throw with conviction, throw bombs. If he gets countered by Zhang anywhere in between there, he could be hurt, he could be floored, he could be taken out. Anywhere in those first 4 to 5 rounds.
Zhilei Zhang is a lot more dangerous over those first 4 or 5 rounds, I think, than Joseph is to Daniel over 12.
Daniel Dubois, who sports a professional record of 22 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 21 knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times in 24 professional bouts.
So he's taken his foot off the gas by fighting Joseph.
I would say so, but that doesn't make this a bad fight. Joseph Parker still is a solid choice. He's riding high too, coming off a string of victories. Dominant win over Deontay Wilder, competitive win over Zhilei Zhang, a former champion who's been in there with anyone from Dillian White to Derek Chisora to Anthony Joshua, Carlos Takam, Andy Ruiz.
Wilder, Zhang, he's been in there with practically everyone.
Practically. And so he still is a solid choice for Daniel. Perhaps not the most ambitious opponent, not the most dangerous, but still solid. And Daniel's earned the right to take his foot off the gas just a bit in his last 3 fights. The fight over a then unbeaten Jarrell Miller, then unbeaten Filip Hrgovic, the fight with Anthony Joshua that he was widely favored to lose. He's earned the right to take his foot off the gas a bit.
Still a good fight.
Joseph Parker would still be a good win for most other heavyweights that are out there, so he would be a good win for Daniel Dubois. No complaints. Sporting a professional record of 35 wins with 3 losses, no draws, 23 knockouts, having been knocked out once, just once, in 38 professional bouts, close to 40.
Close to 40 fights for a fighter who's younger than Alexander Usyk, younger than Tyson Fury, than Deontay Wilder, than Anthony Joshua.
Vastly experienced, but only 32 years old. Joseph is only 32.
The fight.
Well, I don't expect Joseph to take an aggressive approach with Daniel like he did with Wilder. By now, the blueprint is out on Wilder that if you get mid-range to inside on him and force him back, you can fluster him, you can disarm him in that big right hand. But I don't expect Joseph to use that strategy on Daniel.
Wilder ain't got no inside game, and that's why that strategy works on him. But Daniel does. Daniel can handle himself mid-range to inside. So getting aggressive with him would elicit an entirely different response. Thus, I expect Joseph to be more cautious and careful, to move and counter.
Not for nothing, I'm expecting Joseph Parker to fight this fight the way that he fought the Joe Joyce fight.
Did he lose that fight?
Yes, he did. And I'm expecting that he will lose this one for the same reason, because Daniel Dubois is going to get at him. He's going to go after him. And Daniel is the harder puncher of the two.
Joe is more experienced than Daniel and more adaptable. There's an argument that he's the better boxer in terms of nuts and bolts boxing, but as a physical specimen, Daniel's bigger, Daniel's stronger.
The guys who beat him, the guys who beat Daniel, Joe Joyce, Alexander Usyk.
They beat him from the inside out. They beat him in the pocket by stepping to him and getting aggressive with him. I don't expect Joseph Parker to do that. That's not saying that he can't.
He can. I just don't expect that to be the strategy. I think they're gonna try to move and punch, counter, try to hit Daniel with something he doesn't see, beat him that way.
And I don't think that's gonna work.
So many years after losing his WBO title to then unified champion Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker now stands on the precipice of becoming a 2-time heavyweight champion. That is a very short list.
The number of fighters that won a heavyweight title after losing one.
Could it happen? In the heavyweight division, anything can happen. Buster Douglas can beat Mike Tyson. Andy Ruiz can beat Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that Joseph could win, but I'm not banking on it.
I've got Daniel.
I think Daniel is going to knock Joseph Parker out, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that Joseph could beat him, and that's what makes this a good fight, that the outcome isn't a foregone conclusion. There's a reason to believe Daniel wins, and there's a reason to believe Joseph wins. That's what makes a good fight.
The pick.
If I'm picking Daniel Dubois, it's because he's supremely confident right now, riding high. He's a young guy, big, strong.
Very aggressive.
Joseph Parker was overwhelmed by Joe Joyce's aggression. I think Daniel's will be just as overwhelming.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Irrespective of who wins this fight, they will have the winner of the recently ordered Okolie versus Ajagba fight to answer to. Whoever wins that fight becomes the mandatory for whoever wins this fight. So things are shaking, rattling, and rolling in the heavyweight division.